I mean, what was the reason that you chose Boston University and journalism as your subject and university preferred, of course?
Journalism, as I said, I kind of like
Fell in love, right?
with the process. I did internships, and I did like 2 more internships after that to kind of like see that,
Okay,
do I really
this
like
is my genre,
yeah,
right?
this is my genre.
Right.
And when I decided that, okay, I want to do it, and I almost like instinctively knew that I wanted to like go abroad to pursue journalism. I think like one of the main things is which I sort of lacked before I went to the US is you can be a good reporter, you can be a good writer, but I feel like you should also have like the basic bare minimum skills to also be able to like take some pictures and just learn to like do the basic like editing.
So you just said that you didn't actually get connected with all the management people who were there. This can happen sometime to journalists. People actually shame journalists a lot because most of the people think that they are very disturbing. I'm doing something, they're coming up, just to spread my negativity. But most of the time, journalists tend to get rejected as well. Just like you get
one of my professors told me that when I was like facing this rejection, and I was like I don't know, because I think it's important to the story, but they're not getting back to me, so I don't know what to do. And what he told me was that this is your story, you're writing this story, so somebody else can never determine what your story can be. Like, yes, these are the people you're writing the story about, but it is not their story, it is your story, so you can shape it however you want.
Hello and welcome to another new episode of My Career, My Choice podcast. This is your host Rishik. Yes, I'm back again with a very new episode. Maybe for a change, but yes, you're gonna see Abhishek really very soon. So today with me, it's a very special guest who is not just a journalist, but also an alumni of Boston University. Yes, she is from India, of course, and she is from Kolkata. So we are going to hear her amazing story and get to know a lot of things today from her. So, Kaninika, welcome to My Career, My Choice podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all good. So, before we move on to further discussions, can you just introduce yourself a bit to the audience who will be watching you today?
Hi, I'm Kaninika Dey. I am from Kolkata. I graduated with my master's in journalism from Boston University, and now I'm working as a reporter in a local newspaper in Boston called the Belmont Voice.
Okay, so journalist, am I right? So,
yeah.
Did you always had this thing in your mind that you wanted to be a journalist from the very young age? Did you always have this idea?
Honestly, I've always liked like writing and reading and like creative stuff like that. Like writing for my school magazines and stuff. I've never had that idea of like particularly being a journalist. I think the idea kind of like it started kind of when during like quarantine when I was kind of like in my house. Like looking for something to do. There was this like opportunity that arose for me to like intern at this news agency, and through that, I think after I started interning there, I really fell in love with the work, and it was crazy, insane hours, and it was very difficult. But I just realized like, oh my god, I love doing this, and I don't think there's anything I would like rather do. So I think from there I was like, okay, this is something I want to pursue, and kind of that made me want to get my master's in journalism.
So it all started with the internship, right?
Yes.
And suddenly you fell in love with the whole idea of journalism,
yes.
And you chose this career as your, way of life, I should say right now.
Yeah.
So then, when Boston happened, you were in Kolkata, right? You said, and after that you went to Boston, or is there any other place you've been in between this?
No. I was here, and then I went to Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were in Kolkata, and you got this opportunity from Boston, how was you feeling? I mean, it would have been like you're at the top of the world, but I want to hear it from your own words as well.
Oh my god, yeah, it was crazy because I kept refreshing my email like every day to see if I got any emails from and like universities and stuff, and I actually vividly remember getting an email from Boston University. I think it was like around like 10:30, 11 p.m. at night when I got the email, and it was crazy. I thought, my heart stopped beating, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna pass out. But then I went to my mom and was like, pinch me. But yeah, it was very
like one
yeah.
of the best experiences that you'll always save.
Yeah, I'll always remember that. Yeah.
Right. So, how was the journey like whenever you were applying for Boston University? How was the journey? Can you just tell our audience how was it?
Yeah. It was, I would say it was a very, it was an opportunity for a lot of like learning. And because I kind of like navigated the process kind of like on my own. So it was me emailing back and forth with the universities a lot. I would say to the point of being kind of annoying. I would actually say, like, if anyone's applying to universities and stuff, to not stop and think about if you're being annoying, because I emailed every single question I had to universities at like all times. And I would say one thing to their credit is they were very prompt in replying to like emails and stuff, and I kind of like got my answers really promptly. And I think that was one of the things that really helped me was people on the other end were so good at communicating. Like whenever I had any questions, they would like answer really fast. But yeah, I think the process was obviously it had its ups and downs and stuff. But I'm really glad that at the end there was a satisfying kind of like a result at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what actually motivated you to study at Boston University? I mean, what was the reason that you chose Boston University and journalism as your subject and university preferred, of course?
Yeah, journalism, as I said, I kind of like fell
in
in
love,
with, yeah,
right?
with the
Yeah.
process. I did internships, and I did like 2 more internships after that to kind of like see that, do
Okay,
I really like
this is my genre,
yeah,
right?
this is my genre.
Right.
And when I decided that, okay, I want to do it, and I almost like instinctively knew that I wanted to like go abroad to pursue journalism, because I was not very confident in because I grew up here. I was watching journalism all around me, and I was not very confident about like certain integrity. Not to be too controversial, but like integrity and some ethics of journalism that was being portrayed here.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to go abroad, and I kind of like chose US because I was reading a lot of articles about like how journalism is kind of like revered as kind of like as a practice which journalists get certain sort of rights there, which is not kind of like available here to
Right.
like protect them in a sort of way. And Boston specifically, I was researching universities and stuff like that, and I think Boston really stuck out to me as something which had a very like holistic approach towards journalism, because I did my bachelor's in English, so I was
Okay.
not formally trained in journalism. So I really, although I did do like 3 internships, I really wanted to have kind of like an education which kind of taught me about journalism from like the ground up. And I think Boston University, the courses that were listed, it was very mindful of like first time journalists, or maybe people who have like not even like practiced before. So I thought that it was a very good place for me to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You just mentioned that there are few practices that actually respected there in United States, but not
Yeah.
respected here in India as journalists. So,
Yeah.
can you just give me some examples or share some story where you can actually differentiate the culture
Yeah.
or the journalism culture that is there in the United States, or which is lacking here in India,
Yeah.
to be honest?
I guess like in our first semester in Boston University, we had a class about laws and ethics of journalism, where we were taught of like certain rights that journalists had, and some ethics and codes to follow and stuff like that. And where in their constitution there are certain laws where you cannot like that protects journalists kind of like to prevent any like harassment and stuff like that. And I also think like over here sometimes we tend to see like media agencies, like news channels, to be sometimes sort of like biased towards certain political parties.
Okay.
I'm not saying that sometimes it's like that over there too. Like we see some instances, but I think here it's like prevalent. I did do an internship somewhere where we were kind of like encouraged to kind of like write a few lines extra for like a certain political party.
Right.
So yeah, I think like some things like that.
The political biasness.
The political bias,
is actually affecting a lot. You actually mean to say, right?
Yeah.
So don't you think that this is going to actually hamper the students which are actually doing internships, or rather the people who are just starting off their journalism career, if they start to be biasness? I mean, it's somewhere hitting the moral conduct of being a journalist altogether, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I honestly don't blame like the students and people who are like starting from the ground up, who are being told by the superiors to like follow some of these biases, because all they want is to kind of like to get a leg up and start and enter the field. And if they don't like follow what their superiors are saying, and it's like it's a more like deep rooted issue that can be like solved kind of like superficially. It's been going on, and I think it's it's not that easy to
Right.
solve. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is that how different is the syllabus or the teaching practices that you were just spoke about different from Indian current educational system of journalism, of course?
Yeah.
How's different?
I think in India, it's a very like theoretical, in the sense you're being taught about what you can expect in the field and more the theories of journalism. But in the US, it's very much like you're thrown into the field as like a real
to get
journalist.
a hands-on experience.
Yeah, to get a hands-on experience, so that you can like it's no more like in theory, oh, this could happen, this is actually happening to you, so you need to like solve. Like in our first week, we were already given assignments, and to go around, like talk to people, interview people, write stories, and to kind of like really be in the field and learn what journalism is through doing work, rather than like learning or memorizing stuff like that. In the sense, we did not have like traditional classes in Boston University, except like the media ethics class, which was like you read and then you give an exam and stuff. Otherwise, all of our other classes were like assignment based, where we had to like find stories and interview and write stories, like or like maybe make a photo story or like a video story, stuff like that.
Okay, so it's more practical based, where
Yes.
student gets to learn a lot of things practically rather than being theoretical. And when people start after their graduation, when people start to experience their first time being a journalist, they kind of get like what should I do right now in this situation? But you guys were already adapted to the whole scenario of being a journalist.
Yes.
That is what the main difference
Yes.
lies. And don't you think that people in India, right, or rather the education system in India altogether, should actually go for this change, that not be theoretical and rather be practical, and rather teach students to how to be not biased and give proper stories? Don't you think this is what people should do right now at this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important for you to kind of like already have an idea of what you're getting into, like, in the practical side of things before you're out, before you graduate, because then you already have some sort of like experience, so that when you have like an actual job, then, you already have some sort of experience.
So given the fact that the political scenario in India is actually very, strong,
Yeah.
so how do you think that it's affecting the Indian media or Indian journalism at this moment?
To be honest, like, I don't think, even if some aspects of the current political scenario were to change, there would be any change in kind of like the bias that we see in journalism, because I think it has been happening for ages, and it's like, as I said, like a much bigger problem, where like we have seen like like media parties kind of like they change their tune as the people in power change. So it's not just one political party, it's everybody. So in that way, I think I don't see it like changing. I just feel like for like young journalists, I think I think it's just important for them to like, know the integrity of what they're doing and kind of like, try to be as honest as they can.
Right. I'll ask this one question to you: that how is it different from the US, that journalists being biased towards Indian political parties and journalists being biased towards US political party? Is there any biasness altogether? That's my first question, and then I would just continue with why it is different.
I feel like, like as journalists, you're supposed to like stay like 100% like neutral and not have any biases. But I think as human beings, it's difficult not to have a certain level of bias. Like it's always ingrained in you. There is a certain kind of like bias in your head.
Right.
I think like the difference mainly lies in the fact that in India, I think like mainly there's like I don't think like according to my knowledge, I don't think there's like many like laws like that can protect the journalists from facing any maybe any like major legal trouble. Like as we've learned in our like media law and ethics class how there's like constitutional laws in the US which kind of like probably if like a journalist is writing a story and he or she has like not agreed to like disclose their source, technically they are protected by law to not give up that name. I don't know how much that is true here, like if they have the privilege to kind of like be like, okay, I want to protect my source and I don't want to give up their name. You know
Right.
what I mean? Yeah.
So you mean to say is basically the difference between India and US, the journalists are actually given a good protection by law where they can work freely, which is not
Yeah.
always possible or always applicable for Indian
Yeah.
journalists as well. But just as you said that Indian journalist doesn't get this much of protection, but
Yeah.
US journalists actually get a lot of law protection. This actually makes a lot of difference because they can actually work freely. If according to you, they are more free to discover more stories, take out more of spices, more of the raw or the natural stories from people, and they can actually present it, which Indian people can't because they are always have a fear factor in their back of the mind. Again, this fear factor thing, which maybe exists in India, that okay, if I write against someone, he or she might do something against me. But is this fear factor there in you guys when you guys are actually writing something debatable or something with a broader issue or a larger issue? Is this fear factor sometimes hits you?
I feel like for sure. I personally have not risen up to that level where I've written like something so controversial. Somebody's like coming behind me. But I do think like there are people, powerful people everywhere who
Right.
have the means to kind of make your life hell if they want to.
Right,
So I think like there is always like a fear factor because people everywhere are a little bit scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but so you're still enjoying your life at Boston, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay, in your opinion, what skills do Indian journalists or Indian, aspiring journalists needs to have right now within them that will actually, or that can actually make a difference of, being someone who can stand out and who can actually present a good story to the public, which is actually very much needed?
Yeah. I think like one of the main things is, which I sort of lacked before I went to the US, is you can be a good reporter, you can be a good writer, but I feel like you should also have like the basic bare minimum skills to also be able to like, take some pictures and just learn to like, do the basic like editing, because sometimes when you're sent in to do stories, you will not get a photographer with you. So just learning to kind of like take like, very basic skills to kind of like take pictures and like edit so that you can present a whole story to your editor where you not only have the written portion, you also have the pictures. So
Ready
kind
with
of
the
like so
picture,
that you can like present like a whole package.
The full package basically.
Yeah, the full package, yeah.
Right. So photo editing skills is something that is a basic requirement that people should have.
People should have, yeah.
People carry phones nowadays mostly
Yeah.
so that they can actually click the picture and then write the whole story.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. I think phones are like also amazing. It's not that you always have to have like a camera. Just like very basic
Right.
skills. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just as you said previously that this hands-on experience or internship actually helped you learn a lot of things. So you just said that this internships and hands-on experience actually helped you shape up your life as a journalist. So can you just share some interesting stories from your internship or hands-on experience period or at that point of time?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was honestly, before I say the stories, I just want to say it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life because it kind of like changed the trajectory of my life and put me towards a path. But it was also very like emotionally draining and very strenuous, very stressful. Because my the editor that I was working under, she's a great journalist. Like I just think like she's one of the best journalists, and but she was very demanding, to put it lightly. Where we would sometimes get stories to like write and edit at like maybe like 11:30 p.m. at night, and she'd be like, आधा घंटे में चाहिए, and that was I just think that kind of like taught us like, yeah, journalism, it just comes to you in weird hours. But yeah, I think like also like because I kind of like went in with not much like experience and stuff like that. Sometimes her tough love, worked. Actually helped me.
Yeah.
Where I kind of like got an idea of like what a demanding editor can look like very early on in my experience. So that now whichever editor I get is like, for me, is like, it's not that demanding because
Right.
she just set the example. Yeah.
I would say that you have tasted something so much spicy that a normal chili doesn't feel like it's too
Yeah.
spicy, because I've already tasted the most spiciest thing ever. So
Yeah.
this is your experience in India, right?
Yes.
And how's the experience I would say versus the experience in US? So how's the experience in US being an intern or doing something hands-on?
I think like US, the main thing is like they're like very like they're very like mindful of what they're saying, and they're very like mindful of how your emotions get affected and how you're feeling, and they're all about like gentle parenting, where they will tell you like, oh, this is something I expected from you. Next time I think you can do better. Like in a way, they will tell you like, maybe like sort of like passive aggressive, I would say. But they will never like scream at you or shout at you. They're like, they'll say it like very gently, but like you'll be like, okay.
Okay, it's like
Yeah.
hitting someone but gently.
But gently, like with like a sugar knife, yeah.
A sugar knife. Okay, I
Yeah.
am sure I will remember this terminology called sugar knife.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what is the best experience you had as a journalist? Like one experience that you will always remember for your entire life. Okay,
Oh my-
like this is
yeah.
the best thing that I did. So do you have such experience?
Do I have? Yes.
Okay.
I for my final semester for one class, we had to like write like a feature length article about and a feature length article. So I was just scrolling through. There's this neighborhood app that I have, that I sometimes use to like find stories. Anyways, I was scrolling through this app and I find this older woman who's kind of like distraught that she has like rats in her apartment.
She has rats in her apartment.
Yeah, she has rats in her
Like,
apartment.
does she like pets them or like?
No. Her house got infested by rats,
Okay.
and her building management is doing nothing to solve it, and she's very angry, and she's pissed off about it, and I write to her. I'm like, hi, I'm like a student journalist at Boston University. I would like love to like hear your story and write about it. Would you mind? And she instantly replies to me, and she gives me her phone number. She's like, yes, I would like to talk to you. And then the next day, I don't think the next day, I think like a few days later, I go to her place, and
Did you saw rats?
I did not see, unfortunately, rats, but I go to her place, and she's mad. She was going through a lot.
Right, yeah.
Because she was like, in her 60s, she was like living alone. She had like terminal illness and stuff like that. And she was very mad at her like management like not doing anything. And then we started speaking, and then she was like, I'm really sick and I have my doctor's appointment today. And I was like, can I accompany you to your doctor's appointment? Let me just come with you. And I was not expecting her to say yes. I mean, I was hoping she'd say yes, but I was not sure. But she was like, okay, yeah, fine, let me, she was like, fine, you can come with me. And I was like, okay. And then I went to her doctor's appointment. I spoke to her doctor about how this entire situation is affecting her health. Because at that time, she's like not even living in her apartment. She came to her apartment to speak to me. She's living at like one of her friends' couches and stuff like that.
Oh.
And so then, and she's like, I'm deciding to adopt a cat so that I can help me with the rats and stuff. Anyway, I end up following the story for like 2 months, and I try to speak to her management office. I call them one time and I tell them who I am. And they're like, okay, yeah. I'm transferring you. And then they cut the call and they never call me back. And I keep calling them and I never hear back from them. I try to go talk to them. They don't talk to me. So it was like a whole thing. And she ends up adopting a cat. And then I did a final interview with her a month later where she had moved back in. And she was like, there was one extermination thing that happened. And she's like, I feel a little bit better because I have a cat with me now. But I think that is like one of the best experiences that I've had, because it was like following this woman, and it was like a wild story. It was
like
just
adventurous,
rats.
to be honest.
Yeah, very adventurous.
Yeah. Sounds like a movie altogether, like rats and everything. But I'm glad that she adopted a Tom for all her Jerrys. Yes. But I mean, what did you actually take out from this whole adventure of yours that you had for 2 months? Like, what is the moral, or what is that one thing you actually learned from this whole story?
Yeah, I think I think it was like, as a journalist, like not just a journalist, as a storyteller, I would say you always want your stories to have like a beginning, middle, and end with like a proper, like, I don't know, like a proper point where there's like a contrast and it like everything comes to a, but you will, because these are real life stories, you'll never find the perfect like flow of the story like that. So like there were so many things that went where I was like not expecting it to go. For example, I was expecting to speak to her management office and have like a concrete answer, but sometimes people just don't talk to you, and you just have to like deal with it. And I think like it was very interesting as like a feature length article where I could kind of like, I was able to like kind of capture her journey, where she was not even being able to like stay at her own place, and she was like living at a friend's couch, and now she's back to her apartment. So I think that was very satisfying, the arc of the story.
So you just said that you didn't actually get connected with all the management people who were there. This can happen sometime to journalists. People actually shame journalists a lot because most of the people think that they are very disturbing. I'm doing something, they're coming up just to spread my negativity. But most of the time journalists tend to get rejected as well, just like you face that experience. So how did you actually cope up with that? Like, okay, I am getting rejected, but I won't get this in my head. I need to actually work. This is something that students or aspiring journalists nowadays needs to know, that rejection is not the only thing that you should keep in mind. You should go forward. So how did you cope up, or what suggestions will you give to people who are getting rejected from people?
I think journalism is a very humbling experience, because you send out like so many emails asking like interview requests and stuff, and people sometimes like don't get back to you, and you have to like keep emailing them and they don't get back to you. And one of my professors told me that when I was like facing this rejection, and I was like I don't know, because I think it's important to the story, but they're not getting back to me, so I don't know what to do. And what he told me was that this is your story. You're writing this story. So somebody else can never determine what your story can be. Like, yes, these are the people you're writing the story about, but it is not their story. It is your story. So you can, you can shape it however you want. You might think something is important. You might think that, my story will not work if that person does not respond, or if this person says a certain thing, but that's never the case. You can write your story like however you want. So I think it's just like, just it's your story. You can just do whatever you want with it. Even if like a
Right.
person says no, you can just like shape your story in a way where they're not that important.
So, to be a journalist, you need to be a good storyteller first. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm trying to say that, yeah.
We both agree on the same
Yeah.
thing. So, my next question will be that everyone has a dream, story to cover. I see my
Yeah.
friend, he's a sports journalist, and
Yeah.
he was saying that my dream is to go to the World Cup someday to cover a big match, maybe a final match. So, everyone has a
Yeah.
dream. So, do you have a dream story that you really want to cover, or you have some genre of yourself that you want to go and cover this topic? Do you have that in your mind?
For me, I don't know like if it's like I have like a dream story, but I feel like I would love to one day like write like a profile of like somebody, like somebody I like really look up to. I don't know who, but like somebody really famous that I'm a fan of. I'd love to interview them.
Who are you a fan of? I'm just asking. I'm just curious.
Just like a bunch of people
Like,
actually.
please name them. 2 or 3. Come on.
Taylor Swift.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Who else? I guess like maybe like Timothy Chalamet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just take this example. You got to interview Shah Rukh Khan. What will your reaction be?
Um, I will probably like I'll probably like scream. I actually do know like my friend's mom who is a journalist and who was also one of the major reasons that I thought journalists were so cool because she was so cool. She got to interview Shah Rukh Khan in Mannat once, and
Okay.
yeah, and it's a very funny story. I don't know if I should say it, but it's a very funny story where she took my friend who was like really, so I think she was like 6 or 7 with her, and she was like standing outside near like the security guard, like she did not enter, but and she and her story was like, oh, I used the washroom in Shah Rukh Khan's house, when in reality it was like outside in the security guard's thing, but she did interview Shah Rukh Khan once, so I'm 1 degree closer to him.
Okay. Yeah. But you will be the gladdest person probably on earth.
Yeah.
If you get to interview Shah Rukh Khan and Taylor Swift all together, you will
Imagine.
start flaunting. Okay, I interviewed Shah Rukh Khan, I interviewed Taylor Swift. It's like 80% or 90% fan base of the whole world,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
If we calculate both Shah Rukh
Yes.
Khan and Taylor Swift, since I'm a big fan of Shah Rukh Khan as well. But yeah, yeah, doing a personal interview of someone you admire will be your
Yeah.
dream, to be honest.
Yes,
And- And you are just.
and I'll try to be as professional as I can.
Are you sure you can be?
Yes, I will be.
How will you manage? That's my question. If you see Shah Rukh Khan in front of you, there is a fangirl I
Yeah.
know inside you that will be okay, jumping around, screaming around.
Yeah.
Okay, I interviewed Shah Rukh Khan. I will
Yeah.
interview Shah Rukh Khan right
Yeah,
now. But
yeah,
then
yeah.
you have to be professional. This is how the job
Exactly.
demands you to
I
be.
think I'll probably like pinch myself to be like to keep myself like
Calm down,
Yeah,
Kaninika.
I was like,
Kaninika,
I
calm
was like,
down.
I was like, calm down. Don't ruin this for yourself.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great. That's great. Okay, my final question to you before I wrap up this show is that what is that one piece of advice that you would actually give to Indian aspiring journalists or students altogether, that why they should choose journalism as their career if they're thinking that, okay, let's just come to journalism because I want to? What is that one thing?
I think my biggest advice would be, like if you like communicating with people and telling stories, and kind of because journalists are kind of like the bridge between, like regular people and the news, basically. You're kind of like you're telling things that are happening every day. So you're kind of like bringing the events of the world to people's like hands, whatever. So I think like if you care about like communicating with people and telling their stories, because I think nothing is more fun than talking to people about things that they're passionate about, because I think like people love to talk about things they're passionate about, and it's just like a different kind of energy, and I think like if you want to kind of like capture those moments and put it in front of like other people to consume, and if you love kind of like interacting with people, basically, I think journalism is for you.
Well, yes, thanks a lot, Kaninika, once again for being such a lovely guest to our
Yeah.
podcast. I think
Thank
people
you.
will get to learn a lot from this episode. And yes, guys, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for amazing podcast that is coming up right for you. So yes, guys, keep watching My Career, My Choice. Have a great day, and we'll see you once again.